Dismissed by my parents and sister, I secretly built a $150 million company. On my sister's wedding day, my gift to her was a card revealing my company's $150 million valuation. After the wedding, they regretted it. I know they're laughing behind my back. I don't need to hear them to imagine the words my mother and sister whisper to each other while sitting in their luxurious living room, holding expensive wine glasses, their lips curling in disdain. She's probably busy with another one of her crazy projects, forgetting to eat again. Or worse, when will she finally accept that she's never going to succeed? Those words, though never spoken to my face, have followed me like a shadow for years. My name is Catherine Monroe, and at 31 my entire family sees me as nothing more than a pathetic failure. While they throw extravagant parties, discuss multi-million-dollar deals, and mingle with the most powerful social circles, I sit alone in my small apartment, working over 90 hours a week to build a company they believe is doomed. The truth? I'm about to accomplish something they never saw coming. Since I was a child, my mother had a perfect plan for my life. Or rather, for our family's future. I was supposed to go to Harvard Business School, work for my father's prestigious corporation, and marry a suitable man to solidify our family status. But I didn't follow her plan. I chose my own path. Instead of stepping into a sleek office with a six-figure salary right after graduation, I dived into fintech, a field where people warned only geniuses or fools survived. With a small team of developers, I built an AI-driven platform capable of analyzing and predicting financial market trends with unprecedented accuracy. A bold, risky project. And the only thing I ever truly believed in. But to my family, all they saw was a stubborn girl wasting her youth in a rundown apartment without a single dollar to spare. Sophia, my younger sister, was the golden child my mother took pride in. At 27, Sophia had everything my mother dreamed of: a degree from Wharton, a high-ranking position as CFO at the family company, and an engagement to Andrew Carter, the only son of one of New York's top real estate moguls. Their wedding would be the event of the season, bringing together the wealthiest and most influential people in the city. And me? I was just the eccentric older sister they reluctantly sent an invitation to for the sake of appearances. Every time we met, Sophia never missed an opportunity to drive a dagger into my pride. "You missed another family gathering?" she once remarked, giving me a slow, judgmental once-over. "Or are you still locking yourself away in that tiny box of yours, clinging to a hopeless dream?" She thought I was avoiding them on purpose. The truth was, I had no need to be present at dinners where I was treated like an outsider. Last week marked the 12th family dinner I had skipped. This time, my mother sent Sophia to check on me. Sophia stood at my door, a brand new Chanel bag in hand, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against it as if she were mentally calculating my failures. "Catherine, Mom sent me to see if you're still alive," she said as she stepped inside, her eyes sweeping over my modest apartment with a look of utter disgust as if she had just walked into the filthiest place on earth. "God, you really live like this? Why are you punishing yourself?" I gritted my teeth, saying nothing. Instead of answering, I turned back to my desk, where financial reports filled my screen. I had no time to explain to someone who had never worked more than 50 hours a week that success didn't always come in the form of a luxury office or a diamond ring the size of a walnut. But Sophia wasn't done. "You know," she said, flipping her golden hair over her shoulder, "Andrew just bought me a yacht. We're going to the Maldives after the wedding. Oh, and by the way, I hope you wear something that doesn't look too cheap, if you plan on attending SLUP." No one hit anyone, but her words landed like a slap across my face. I could have ended the conversation right then and there. I could have pulled out a single sheet of paper, a contract that if Sophia saw it, would wipe that smug expression off her perfect face in an instant. Because I was about to become a millionaire. After 4 grueling years, the AI platform I built had secured an investment from one of the world's largest venture capital firms. We had just finalized a $50 million deal, and if everything went according to plan, my company's valuation would triple within the next 2 years. But I didn't say a word, not yet. I just looked at Sophia and smiled. "Don't worry about your wedding gift," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "I have something special for you," Sophia scoffed. "As long as it's not some homemade card or a messy sketch, I'll appreciate it." I looked at my sister, feeling an eerie sense of calm. They had no idea what was coming. I watched Sophia walk out of my apartment, the sharp click of her heels echoing against the worn tile floor. As the door shut behind her, I remained still, my fingers tightening around the cold coffee cup. This apartment, the very thing she sneered at, was where I had sacrificed sleep, warm evenings, and even my family's recognition to build something far greater than any of them could ever imagine. I took a deep breath and turned back to my computer screen. The contract was waiting for my confirmation. This moment should have felt like a glorious victory. A $50 million deal, negotiated in secret for the past 3 months. A major financial firm had decided to acquire my AI platform, a technology they believed would revolutionize the market. I had done what no one in my family thought possible. From a so-called failure, I had become a millionaire overnight. But I didn't feel satisfied, not completely. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the unread message from my mother. Mom, Catherine, just remember not to do anything attention-seeking at Sophia's wedding. This is the most important day of her life. I don't want anyone talking about your differences. Differences? I let out a quiet laugh. All my life, I had been the stain on my family's perfect picture. An embarrassment my mother had to conceal. I shut off my phone and returned to the contract. With one click, everything I had worked for would become reality. Oh, but not yet. The timing wasn't right. The next day, Sophia texted me again. Sophia, Mom said you're coming to the wedding. Don't wear anything cheap, and for God's sake, don't show up late like some careless fool. We have important guests, Sophia, and don't do anything stupid. Everyone knows you don't fit into this world. The last sentence made me pause. Don't fit into this world? I used to think that too, that I didn't belong at the lavish parties, the gatherings where people measured each other's worth by designer labels and the size of their diamond rings. But the truth was, it wasn't that I didn't belong in their world. It was that they could never comprehend the world I was building. I glanced at my desk, where a thick folder rested beside my laptop. Inside were the documents that Sophia, my mother and my father had never seen, the proof of the deal in motion, the numbers that showed I had accomplished what they deemed impossible. I could send it to Sophia right now. Let her see that the failure she had always looked down on had soared far beyond her reach. But no, I would wait. I wanted Sophia to witness the moment her world cracked. The moment she realized that everything she believed about me, about success, about herself, was wrong. I picked up my phone and typed a quick message. Me? Don't worry, Sophia, I have something special for you. I set my phone down, feeling an odd sense of peace wash over me. They had no idea what was coming. I stood before the mirror, my fingers brushing over the smooth fabric of my form-fitting Versace dress. Every line, every detail exuded confidence and power. For the first time in years, I wasn't wearing faded jeans or an oversized hoodie. I was no longer Catherine Monroe, the family's so-called failure. Tonight, I would walk into their world, but not as someone to be dismissed. The envelope sat inside my clutch. It wasn't heavy, yet the weight of what it contained was greater than anything I had ever carried. Proof of the $50 million deal. The result of years of relentless work, unnoticed by them. Tonight they would see the truth. Sophia's wedding was an extravagant spectacle, white silk tablecloths draped across banquet tables, crystal glasses filled with champagne, chandeliers casting shimmering reflections on the priceless jewels worn by the guests. Everything was flawless, just the way Sophia liked to control her life. I stepped into the banquet hall feeling every gaze sweep over me. Some eyes held surprise, others curiosity. No one saw Catherine in an old sweater and ripped jeans anymore. Then I met my mother's eyes. She froze, her lips parting slightly as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her gaze flickered over my dress, my heels, then settled on my face, confident, devoid of any trace of the daughter she had once dismissed. Sophia sat at the head table, surrounded by her closest friends and her new husband, Andrew Carter. She saw me too. And as if by instinct, the smile on her lips froze. I walked toward the tables, picking up a champagne glass from a passing waiter, moving slowly, deliberately. Then Sophia spoke. Catherine. She narrowed her eyes, her voice laced with mockery and mild irritation. You actually came, and wow, you're wearing designer? I didn't expect that. A few guests chuckled softly. I simply smiled, saying nothing. My mother cut in, her voice sharp. Catherine, don't ruin Sophia's special day. I lifted my champagne glass, swirling it lightly before replying calmly. Of course not, Mother. My sister is getting married. How could I not bring a gift? Then, I placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward Sophia. Congratulations, Sophia. This is my wedding gift to you. All eyes shifted to the plain white envelope. Sophia scoffed, picking it up with that familiar air of condescension. Uh-oh, don't tell me it's another one of your handmade cards. I still remember that weird painting you gave me years ago. I had to hide it so no one would see. Her friends burst into laughter. I remained silent, waiting. Sophia tore open the envelope, pulling out the stack of documents inside. Her eyes skimmed the first few lines, and her smirk began to fade. Confusion crept onto her face. Then, she reached the number $50 million USD, and her hands started to tremble. Tell me this is a joke, Catherine. She looked up, her voice no longer arrogant, just sheer disbelief. Is this real? I tilted my head slightly, my expression calm. 100% real, Sophia? My mother snatched the papers from Sophia's hands, her eyes scanning the words rapidly before her face drained of color. Selling the company? $50 million. She turned to me, her voice shaking with barely restrained shock. What the hell did you do, Catherine? I built a company that everyone said was hopeless, I said with a slight shrug. And then, one of the biggest financial firms decided to acquire it. I guess I wasn't as useless as you thought. A suffocating silence filled the room. The guests, those who had laughed at me, those who had always believed Sophia was the perfect daughter, were now witnessing a truth that had been buried for years. Sophia gripped the papers tightly, her voice dry. You can't have? I smirked. I can't have succeeded? Can't have more money than Andrew's family? Can't have accomplished this on my own? I held her gaze, my voice steady yet cutting. And yet, here I am, no one spoke. Then, I continued. But this is just the beginning. My technology will keep evolving. The company's valuation is expected to surpass $150 million in the next 2 years. And when that happens, I took a slow sip of my champagne, savoring the moment. I won't just be the most successful person in this room. I'll be the most successful person in this family. I don't know who was the first to take a sharp breath, but I heard it clearly. Sophia sank into her chair, her gaze vacant. She had never imagined that the sister she had always looked down on would be the one to make her feel small. My mother, my father, all of them, were in utter disbelief. They had thought I would never break free from the limits they had placed on me. But today, I shattered them all. After the wedding, everything changed. No more pitying glances when I walked into a room. No more mocking smirks from relatives when my name was mentioned at family gatherings. The name Catherine Monroe was no longer tied to failure. Instead, it came with curiosity, respectful handshakes, and sweet yet calculated congratulations. My company, the one my family once dismissed as a joke, was now at the center of the financial world. News of the $50 million deal spread across major financial publications, and CEOs who had once rejected me were now eager to collaborate. And Sophia? She hated every second of it. 3 weeks after the wedding, I sat in my new office, an upscale apartment on the 45th floor with a sweeping view of the city. Sunlight streamed through the glass walls, reflecting off my laptop screen, where financial data fluctuated in real time. My phone lit up with a new notification. Breaking news: Carter Group faces financial crisis. Possible bankruptcy. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Just as expected. I had seen this coming, long before Sophia walked down the aisle in her pristine white gown. My AI technology didn't just analyze financial data, it predicted corporate collapses based on millions of variables. And 6 months ago, my platform had flagged a red alert for Carter Group. I had tracked every number, every concealed financial report, every reckless investment decision. Sophia's in-laws weren't as secure as she believed. Their empire was built on debt, market manipulation, and high-risk deals. And now? It was teetering on the edge of collapse. Sophia didn't know it yet. But she would soon enough. My mother's call came at 10 a.m. I picked up, her voice was rushed, unsteady, a rarity. Catherine, have you seen the news? The Carter family, they're in serious trouble. I twirled a pen between my fingers, my voice calm. I know. She hesitated. How did you know before everyone else? I didn't answer right away, letting her sit in the silence, letting her feel the weight of the gap between what she had believed about me and the reality in front of her. After a few long seconds, I finally spoke, my voice light but firm. Because I'd been watching them, my technology predicted this long ago. But of course, if I had told you earlier, you wouldn't have believed me. She fell silent. I could picture her face, stunned, disoriented, grasping for something to hold on to. Mom, her voice softened. Sophia doesn't know what to do. The Carters are about to lose everything. If this isn't handled properly, they might face an investigation. Andrew could end up in court. I raised an eyebrow, though I wasn't particularly surprised. Is that so? I murmured, taking a slow sip of my coffee. Looks like Sophia's perfect dream is starting to crumble. That afternoon, Sophia called me. For the first time in years, her voice held no sharpness, no arrogance. Catherine? She hesitated, as if she couldn't believe she was calling me for help. How can I help you? I asked, my voice perfectly polite. But Sophia knew full well that I held all the power now. You knew, didn't you? She said, her voice dry. Knew what? I feigned ignorance. Andrew's family's collapse? Her voice was barely above a whisper, as if saying it any louder would make it more real. Their company is losing everything. And if they can't handle their debts, I heard her take a deep, shaky breath through the phone. I'll lose everything too. And that was the moment I had been waiting for. Sophia Monroe, the perfect daughter, the privileged heiress who prided herself on making the right choices, now stood on the edge of losing it all. She had chosen the wrong path. I tightened my grip on the phone, but my voice remained eerily calm. I warned you, Sophia. She held her breath. I told you, success isn't just about marrying the right man or having your parents' backing. I tried to show you that everything you thought about me, about life, was wrong, but you never listened. I didn't know. Her voice began to tremble. Catherine, I know I was wrong, but now you can't let me lose everything. I leaned back in my chair, letting every word sink into the space between us. I can help you, I said slowly, deliberately. She inhaled sharply. But you have to accept one truth. Your perfect dream is over. A long silence. I could hear Sophia's fear through the phone. I understand, she whispered. I closed my eyes and allowed myself a small satisfied smile. Then, I said, it's time for you to learn how to rebuild from nothing. 3 days after Sophia's call, my father showed up at my office. I had expected this. The man who had always been cold and decisive, the one who had told me to my face that I was wasting my life, now stood here, dressed in an expensive but slightly wrinkled suit. There was something in his expression I had never seen before, worry. My assistant called ahead, but I didn't tell her to turn him away. I wanted to witness this moment for myself. He stepped inside, his eyes sweeping over the sleek, luxurious office. This was no longer the tiny apartment he had once scorned. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows, premium leather chairs, large monitors displaying fluctuating market numbers. He stood there, staring at undeniable proof that I had won. Catherine. He spoke, his voice heavy, as if every word cost him a piece of his pride. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Father, my tone was cool, impassive. He exhaled deeply before pulling out a chair and sitting across from me. I hadn't invited him to sit, but he didn't wait for permission. Sophie is in serious trouble. He got straight to the point, abandoning his usual pretense. I lifted my coffee cup, taking a slow sip, unfazed. I know. He narrowed his eyes. How long have you known? I shrugged. 6 months ago. A flicker of shock crossed his face. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, trying to piece together how I had known before the Carter family themselves. I set my cup down, lacing my fingers together as I met his gaze. Where are you here, Father? He was silent for a moment, then let out a heavy sigh. Sophia's about to lose everything. His voice had a slight crack in it. She has no income, no real experience. If the Carter family goes bankrupt, she'll lose all of her privileges too. I tilted my head, saying nothing. I wanted him to say the words he had been avoiding. Finally, after a long hesitation, he swallowed the last remnants of his pride, and said, "She needs your help." I let out a soft laugh, not out of amusement but at the irony of it all. Me, the so-called disgrace of the family, was now the only one who could save their golden daughter. I leaned back in my chair, making no effort to make this easy for him. "And what exactly do you want me to do?" My voice was calm, but there was a sharp blade hidden beneath the words. My father hesitated before speaking slowly. "She needs a job, a place to start over. Could you find a position for her in your company?" I let out a dry chuckle. "So you want me to hand Sophia an easy way out? Give her a fancy title, a high salary, without making her face the consequences of her own choices?" He pressed his lips together, not denying it, but I could see the expectation in his eyes. He thought I would soften. He thought I was still the daughter desperate for my parents' approval. But I was no longer that Catherine Monroe. I placed my hands on the table, meeting his gaze directly. "Fine," I said smoothly. "I'll give Sophia an opportunity, but not in the way you think." My father frowned, wary. "What do you mean?" I pulled a folder from my drawer and placed it on the table. "Sophia can work at my company, but she'll start from the bottom, at an entry-level salary just like any new hire." He froze, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. I continued. "No special treatment, no private office, no favors. She will write reports, analyze data, and actually learn how to work instead of relying on family connections." I paused briefly before delivering the final blow. "However, there is one important condition." His grip tightened on the armrest. "What is it?" I met his gaze, my words cutting like a knife. "Sophia must publicly admit that she was wrong." His eyes narrowed, not immediately grasping my meaning. I leaned forward slightly. "She has to stand in front of the whole family, in front of everyone who's ever heard her belittle me, and acknowledge that she misjudged me, this company, and what true success actually means." My father fell silent. I could see the internal battle raging within him. He wanted to help Sophia, but my condition meant forcing her to swallow the pride that my mother had nurtured in her for years. "And if she refuses?" he asked, his voice lower now. I shrugged. "Then she can figure out how to survive just like I did." The air in the room thickened. At last my father stood up, studying me for a long moment, and in his eyes I saw something unfamiliar. Recognition. "You really have changed," he said, his voice rough. I smiled, but there was no emotion behind it. "No, Father, I've always been this way, you just never saw it." He didn't argue. After a brief hesitation, he picked up the folder from the table and walked out of the room. I watched his retreating figure completely unfazed. Now the choice was Sophia's. She could either swallow her pride and learn how to truly work, or watch her perfect dream collapse entirely. 3 days after my father left my office, Sophia showed up. I had expected her to come, but I hadn't expected her to look like this. Sophia Monroe, the woman who always arrived in designer dresses with perfectly sleek hair and flawless makeup, now looked as if she had stepped out of a nightmare. The dark circles under her eyes were deep, her lips pale, and her expensive coat had creases. Something that would have been unthinkable for the old Sophia. She stood at my office door with no arrogance, no condescending smirk. I didn't tell my assistant to turn her away. I wanted to witness this moment myself. Looking up from my computer screen, I slowly took in my sister's appearance. "I take it you've made your decision," I said calmly. Sophia swallowed hard before stepping inside and closing the door behind her. She stood there for a few seconds hesitating before finally speaking. "I'll work here." Her voice was so quiet that if I hadn't been paying attention I might not have heard it. I nodded, unsurprised. "Good." I slid a folder across the desk. "You can start tomorrow." Sophia stared at the stack of papers as if it were a death sentence. She didn't move, but I could see the internal struggle in her eyes. Then she took a deep breath, picked up the folder, and slowly flipped to the first page. Sophia's first day was anything but easy. I didn't place her in a spacious conference room with leather chairs. I didn't give her a meaningless title so she could coast through her job without actually doing anything. No. I placed her exactly where she never thought she would be. The data analysis department. There, she was no longer Sophia Monroe, the privileged daughter of a wealthy family. She was just another new employee, and no one cared about her last name. Her first assignment was to process financial reports, review data, and write a market trends summary. She had no idea what she was doing. I could see the panic in her eyes as she scrolled through the overwhelming spreadsheets. No one held her hand. No one walked her through the steps slowly. "You're not going to help me?" she asked me during lunch, when we happened to run into each other in the company kitchen. I set down my coffee cup, crossing my arms. "Sophia, I learned everything on my own without anyone helping me," I said, my voice devoid of pity. "I'm not your babysitter. If you want to work here, you have to learn how to stand on your own." She pressed her lips together but didn't argue. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of patience in her eyes. The following days weren't any easier. Sophia began to realize that real work wasn't like attending lavish parties, where she only needed to smile and shake hands to build connections. She made mistakes. A lot of them. She entered incorrect data into the system, forcing the entire team to redo a report. She overlooked a small error in an analysis, causing the projected forecasts to be off. And for the first time in her life, Sophia was reprimanded by a superior with no one to defend her. I didn't help her. I wanted her to feel exactly what I had once felt. The confusion, the helplessness, and the sinking realization that she had no power to rely on. But what surprised me was that Sophia didn't quit. 2 weeks passed, and I began to see the change. Sophia no longer arrived late. She no longer stared blankly at the screen, but instead focused. Trying to understand each number, each financial model. She no longer complained when there was too much data to process. And then, one morning, I received an email from the head of the data analysis team. To Catherine, Sophia just completed her latest market trend analysis. I have to admit, she did better than I expected. This report is 5% more accurate than the previous ones. Just wanted to let you know, she's really trying. I stared at the email for a long moment, then I let out a small amused smile. Maybe, just maybe, Sophia was actually learning something. The next day, I met her in the conference room. "Good job," I said, placing her report on the table. "I read it. You've improved." Sophia looked at me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. For the first time without a trace of arrogance in her voice, I studied my sister for a few seconds before saying, "But you still have a lot to learn." Sophia nodded. No argument, no defiance, just acceptance. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed that Sophia could change. A year passed. My company was no longer just a young startup. Its market value had reached $150 million, and our AI platform had been integrated into some of the largest financial corporations in the US. The CEOs who once ignored me now personally invited me to major conferences, and the media hailed me as a pioneer in fintech. But what surprised me the most wasn't the company's success. It was Sophia. She was no longer the woman I once knew. No more designer dresses at work. No more condescending looks or mocking tones. Instead, Sophia had become one of the most dedicated employees I had ever seen. She no longer avoided difficult tasks, nor did she expect anyone to help her. When I assigned her a new market data analysis project, she spent weeks meticulously combing through the numbers, even staying late at the office without complaint. When her first major report was praised by the board, she didn't look at me expecting recognition. She simply nodded, knowing she had earned it through her own effort. The day Sophia was promoted to a mid-level management position, she walked into my office with a cup of coffee in hand. "I figured you'd like this," she said, placing the cup on my desk before sitting across from me. I looked at her for a long moment, then I let out a quiet chuckle. "What is it?" I asked, crossing my arms. Sophia let out a soft laugh. "I used to think you were just a dreamer, lost in unrealistic ambitions, but now I understand. No one succeeds just because of what they were born into." I leaned back in my chair, looking at Sophia differently. "So, what have you learned after a year of working?" I asked. She exhaled slowly. "Then I'm not special," she said, her voice almost weightless. "I used to believe that having a family name and connections meant I could have everything, but the truth is, no one values you unless you prove your worth. I had to start from scratch. I had to show that I deserved to be here." I nodded, feeling an unfamiliar sense of pride, one I never thought I would have. Sophia was no longer the arrogant, entitled girl she once was. Now she was someone who understood the value of real effort. My family changed too, though I no longer waited for it to happen. My mother stopped making passive-aggressive remarks about how different I was at family gatherings. My father no longer tried to pull me into the family business because now, they both knew I had grown beyond anything they could control. They never apologized in words, but I noticed the shift in small ways. A phone call from my mother just to check in. An article my father sent me about my success, without a single word of criticism, and I understood. They had realized their mistakes. But that no longer mattered to me. I hadn't built this company to gain my family's approval. I hadn't created this success to prove them wrong. I had done it because I believed in myself. One late afternoon, Sophia walked into my office holding a USB drive. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. I nodded. "What is it?" She plugged the USB into my computer and opened a new report. "I think I found a way to optimize the financial trend prediction algorithm. If applied, it could increase accuracy by 8%. I skimmed through the report before turning to her. "You did this on your own?" She nodded. I took a slow sip of my coffee before replying. "I'm impressed." Sophia smiled. No arrogance, no expectation of praise, just pure pride in what she had accomplished. I looked out the window, watching the golden hues of the sunset wash over the city skyline. A year ago I had stood at Sophia's wedding, making sure she, and my entire family, saw that I was no longer the failure they believed me to be. But today, I realized that revenge no longer mattered. Because real success isn't about making others regret their mistakes. It's about creating opportunities, for those who once failed to see, for those who once lacked strength, and most importantly, for myself. So I could keep moving forward without being chained to the past. I shut off my computer and stood up. "Sophia," I said gently, "want to grab dinner with me?" She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "I'll pick the restaurant," she said, and I laughed. At last we were no longer standing on opposite sides. That was my greatest success. Catherine's story isn't just about a woman who defied her family's expectations and rose to success. It's proof of the power of perseverance, independence, and self-belief. In real life, we are often bound by the expectations of society and family. But true success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about creating opportunities to grow and helping others do the same. When we are strong enough to walk our own path, we don't need validation, because our achievements speak for themselves. What do you think about Catherine's journey? Would you have done the same in her position? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring stories about family, career, and life lessons.